Mike, thank you so much for that report. A live look at this hour over Lebanon as we do bring you the latest. Now, we do know that there are questions about exactly what is going to happen with a retaliatory attack. Will it be on Iran's nuclear sites, as has been proposed, mentioned by Israel, even though President Biden did say he is against that? He said he understands that there could actually be a retaliatory strike. He is for that, but not for the attack of nuclear sites. Do want to bring in Javed Ali, Associate Professor of Practice at the Gerald R. Ford School of Public Policy at the University of Michigan, to help break down more about this. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today and help break it down.
Josh, always nice to be with you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Well, first off, I do want to ask you here your thoughts. Is a retaliatory attack by Israel on Iran's nuclear sites really even a possibility? Would they strike those nuclear sites?
Well, based on everything that's unfolded the last several weeks and the rhetoric that and statements that we hear from Prime Minister Netanyahu, Defense Minister Gallant, other senior Israeli military officials, they have carried through on all of those warnings and threats. And so now, with the latest statements coming out about what appears to be an Israeli response to the ballistic missile launches from Iran going back a couple days ago, that now a lot of things are most likely on the table for Israel to select in terms of targets. And now it's a question of what will they choose to hit. Will they try to engage try to hit try to hit Iranian nuclear facilities? And then if so, how many and how often, and what would be the impact of those types of operations? And that's just one potential list of targets. There are other things I'm sure that Israel's considering.
And I imagine there really are some possible ramifications there. You kind of went into that already, but what could possibly be the ramifications? Because we could potentially see that escalate all of this even further if that is what happens.
Well, as I've said in a lot of interviews the past few days, is that if your listeners can imagine this, or it can sort of conceptualize this imaginary escalatory ladder, both Israel and Hezbollah are climbing up that ladder. They're probably in the middle rung of that ladder, using that analogy. But if Israel now responds and really goes after things like Iranian nuclear facilities or sites, then the ladder, the climb up that ladder gets almost to the top of where a ladder would be. So if that happens, the escalation only further spirals, that makes the situation even more dangerous and volatile and precarious than it is right now. So that's, I think, a planning calculation for Israel. Is, do they want that escalatory effect to happen, even if they think they can successfully do damage to however many nuclear sites or targets they want to hit?
We know that Iran obviously would not want Israel to attack their nuclear sites because, again, the ramifications unclear. But President Biden also saying that he does not want that to happen, as we mentioned. So my question is, does Israel kind of factor that into their decision making? Is that something that they care about? Obviously, they care overall about maintaining a good relationship between the U.S. and Israel, but do they really take Biden's word into account when they make a decision on what to do?
Yeah, that's another great question, Josh. And if we look at sort of this disconnect over the past year, beginning with the events of October 7th, and then Israel's response to that, and now this multi-front campaign against Hezbollah and the Houthis and most likely Iran, that time and time again, when President Biden makes a statement urging a certain policy direction or a potential move that would be more de-escalatory in nature, to use that phrase, it seems often that that message doesn't land the way the White House thinks it would, or other senior U.S. government officials think it would in Israel. And so, to a degree, yes, I agree with you. I'm sure the Israeli leaders and Prime Minister Netanyahu are clearly concerned about the relationship with the United States and perceptions of that relationship. But at the same time, as we've seen over this past year, there are moments where Israel goes in a completely different direction than what the U.S. would prefer. And so, given the statements from President Biden just recently about not for Israel not to go after Iranian nuclear facilities. Will that be part of the planning consideration? Hard to know.
Do you think other countries overall, talking specifically about others maybe in the Middle East, would want Iran's nuclear sites to be attacked? I keep talking about possible ramifications as a result. So is that even something that other countries would want?
Well, there are other countries in the region who, like Israel, the United States, are or have been concerned about the potential for Iran to develop an actual nuclear weapons capability, not just having the nuclear energy facilities themselves. Although there's always that potential that that could be the cover for a clandestine nuclear program. And those countries probably include Saudi Arabia, the Gulf countries, Egypt, Jordan, countries that look at Iran as a threat to them, perhaps not as existential as Israel does, but still a security threat in the region. But none of those countries are going to get involved operationally, whatever Israel may try to do, if they do indeed go after nuclear sites. But I still think that is a much lower probability in whatever Israel is going to do next, just because of all these ramifications we've talked about.
Do we know what kind of weapons they have in those nuclear sites? I mean, you kind of touched on this already, and many other experts have as well. But do we know locations and what is inside?
Well, this is one of the great mysteries of Iran's nuclear program, and their known nuclear power facilities and energy facilities are all under inspection by the International Atomic Energy Agency out of Vienna. Now, we've seen other countries able to also engage in clandestine nuclear weapons related activity, even with IAEA, the acronym for that agency's inspections. So looking at Iran now, and there's multiple facilities, nobody really knows if they've actually developed a nuclear weapon. And if you can conceptualize, or viewers can conceptualize what a nuclear weapon is, the warhead mated to some kind of delivery system, whether it's a ballistic missile or cruise missile or something else. Again, this is complete speculation on my part, but I don't think the Iranians have built up their whatever their clandestine nuclear weapons program is. I don't think they've actually weaponized it, and they probably try to very quietly develop highly enriched uranium to put into a warhead, but I don't think they actually have a full up weapon that's ready to launch against any country that they would do. And again, I just think that that scenario is so unlikely for Iran to engage in, just because the stakes would be so high. And right now, even though both countries are climbing up this escalatory ladder, even if Iran had a nuclear weapon, which I don't think anyone assesses that they do, that I don't think they would use it right now, just because it would be a monumentally profound moment and just create such chaos and destruction in the region.
All right. Javed Ali, as always, thank you so much for taking the time to join us and break it all down. Anything else you want to add really about any of this before I let you go?
Well, outside of the nuclear issue, I think what we're seeing in the fight between Iran and Hezbollah is that now there are ground operations underway in southern Lebanon. Your previous piece mentioned that. And this is where I think that fight is going to get fairly difficult, because just like in 2006, when Israel and Hezbollah fought a ground war, that 34-day war was a stalemate before there was a UN brokered ceasefire. So this, I think, is part of Hezbollah's plan, is to try to lure the Israeli military on the ground into southern Lebanon and get them more sort of bogged down in that guerrilla warfare type of threat or operations that they conducted against Israel in 2006. So, and already overnight, we've seen the sad news that 8 Israeli soldiers died in ground operations against Hezbollah. So that, I think, is another twist to this fight, is that it's entering into the ground phase, and this is where it's also going to get very violent.
All right.